Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia. Welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup 2020 Week 12 results. So, I think I should start this off by apologising, shouldn't I? Because I said in the preview for this week that we were going to see some really interesting and close games. And, well, we saw some interesting games, but they weren't very close. So, out of the 10 matches we had this week, 8 of them were 3-0s. Yeah, didn't expect that one at the beginning of the week. Anyway, we have some interesting stuff to look at, and it's gonna give us a really big indication of where the teams are at, and especially in the coming weeks with the changes that have now been enforced with cross NA play coming to the Overwatch League, so East versus West Coast and all that. It's going to be really interesting. We're going to see a lot more, and we're going to know a lot more about where these teams kind of filter in and stand in our standings. But without further ado, let's get into this then. So we started off on the Saturday with Seoul Dynasty taking on Hangzhou Spark, and this went as everyone probably would have predicted. Seoul Dynasty are a massive cut above the Hangzhou Spark, and they get a 3-0 win over the Hangzhou Spark. The Spark are not the team they were last year, and this demonstrates this. They cannot compete with this refreshed Seoul Dynasty side. And Hangzhou Spark, in my opinion, are going to be a middle-of-the-pack team. So that's what we're looking at here. Seoul Dynasty are definitely not going to be a middle-of-the-pack team. Are they going to be one of those top teams? Well, we'll see at the end of this video, won't we? Or a little bit later on anyway. Moving on. Guangzhou Charge taking on the Shanghai Dragons. Again, as you would expect, Shanghai Dragons get a 3-0 win over the Guangzhou Charge. Shanghai Dragons have been stomping everyone in the Asian region since they lost 3-0 to the Chengdu Hunters, their only loss of this season. And Shanghai, they're looking real good. They are looking really good. And, I mean, we'll get onto their match a little bit later on against the Seoul Dynasty, and we will see where we're at with that. But moving on to third match, New York Excelsior taking on the Chengdu Hunters. So New York Excelsior have been out of the loop for quite a while, and I worried that they might suffer from the old first week back syndrome that some of the teams have been facing in recent times, where they have an off week on the first week back. But this has certainly not affected the team from New York. With them getting a 3-0 win over the Chengdu Hunters, New York looked very, very good. Very, very good, I have to say. And New York, I mean, they were high in my estimations already, but they've gone up this week with their performances. They really did come out and put on a show, exactly what you'd expect of a top tier team in this league. And so, yeah, New York, they're going to have to start being talked about as, you know, one of the teams to beat right now. They are one of the teams to beat right now, but next week is going to give us a massive indication about who is top of this Asian region. Anyway, moving away from the Asian region, we had 2 games in NA to talk about. This is the Atlanta Reign taking on the Philadelphia Fusion. So this was a 3-0 for the Philadelphia Fusion. And this is one of the games, you could have predicted the 3 games previous could have been sweeps, but this game I would not have predicted as a sweep. But Philadelphia Fusion vastly outclassed the Atlanta Reign. It was close on some maps, don't get me wrong. But Fusion were clearly a cut above the Reign, and we are now starting to see a divide, and we will see which teams fall into this divide across this week and next week maybe, although we might already know now. But there is a team, or there is a group of about 4 teams at the top, and then there is a group a slight bit below them, the chasing pack, and this is where Atlanta Reign falls in. Philadelphia Fusion are one of those teams at the top group, in my opinion right now, and then you've got everyone else. And we're going to find out over this week and the next couple of weeks where these teams fall in terms of these little mini groups. But that's something we'll talk about a bit more in a minute. Next up, San Francisco Shock taking on Los Angeles Valiant. The San Francisco Shock have had wobbles in the past this season against the Valiant, but this was a very strong display from the Shock team. A 3-0 here for the Shock is no surprise. Valiant, they're having a tough time of it because they're having tough fixtures. That's the unfortunate thing for the Valiant at the moment. And hopefully when we get cross NA play, when they take on the likes of Boston, Toronto, and those sorts of teams, maybe Florida as well, they will get some wins on the board. They will get some wins on the board because I think the current standings or their current place in the standings doesn't reflect the quality this team has shown this season. Definitely not. So yeah, they've had a tough time of it, some tough fixtures, Valiant, but I think with the East versus West sort of thing coming across now, we will see Valiant pick up more wins in the future going forward. But a 3-0 win for the Shock is exactly what you would expect of the Shock here, and it shows that they are now getting over their blip that they had once they came back a couple of weeks ago, and the Shock are starting to find their form. They are one of those teams that I don't know whether they're in that chasing pack or that top pack at the moment. They're looking more and more like they're in that top pack, but again, I want to see them go up against stronger teams. Philadelphia Fusion, for example. When we get to see San Francisco Shock versus Philadelphia Fusion, which we will, then that will be a massive, massive match. That will tell us who is at the very top of the tree in NA. And that's just going to be massive because we're not going to see Shock take on New York. We're not going to see Shock take on Seoul. We're not going to see Shock take on Shanghai at the moment. So that's the biggest indication we'll have of that. So we'll wait for that match whenever it comes up. But moving on to the Sunday's games then, and Hangzhou Spark taking on the Chengdu Hunters. This was slightly surprising. I thought Chengdu Hunters would be able to pick up a win here, or sneak out a win, but Hangzhou Spark get a 3-1 victory over the Hunters. Finally, a match where both teams got on the board in terms of maps. But Hangzhou Spark, this is a good win. This is a win that the Hangzhou Spark need, because they had been on a not a great run of form. I don't expect their form to really pick up. They are in a very strong region right now. When we roll off the teams that are in the Asian region, we look at Seoul, Guangzhou, Shanghai, New York, Chengdu, London, Hangzhou. That's the teams in the Asian region. Hangzhou, they're not in the top half of that region anymore. They're not going to be able to get up with the Seoul Dynasties, the Shanghais, the New Yorks. It'll be interesting to see when they play London, which they will do in the coming weeks. So it'll be interesting to see, because that'll be a big indication of where London are and where Hangzhou are. But Hangzhou and Guangzhou are kind of trading blows right now. Hangzhou seem to be better than Chengdu. So if, in my estimations, that puts Chengdu as the worst team in the region. But again, we don't know. Especially when London come into it, we don't know whether London are going to be the worst team in the region, or perhaps the fourth team in the region, or the third team in the region. London could come anywhere, so we really don't know. But good win for Hangzhou. Testing times for Chengdu Hunters. Yeah, it's not a brilliant look, especially in a week where I thought they would do a bit better than that. We've seen some Doomfist Genji this week, and we haven't seen it from Chengdu, which is rather surprising. They decided to run a lot of meta, which is unlike Chengdu Hunters. But moving on, and this was the match we were looking forward to. Shanghai Dragons taking on the Seoul Dynasty. The big, big match of the weekend. This was a massive teller. By far the hardest game Seoul had this season after taking on the two LA teams. By far the hardest game that the Shanghai Dragons had this season after they've been doing the rotation in Asia. So we've been tipping Seoul Dynasty as one of the best teams in the league. We've been tipping Shanghai Dragons as one of the best teams in the league. The question is, who is better? And by far in this match, it was Shanghai Dragons. Shanghai Dragons get a 3-0 over Seoul Dynasty. I cannot overestimate how important that is for Shanghai, and how much indication it gives us in terms of where these teams are. Because we saw a clash of styles here. Seoul Dynasty could not keep up with the pace that Shanghai Dragons were setting. And there are two teams in this region, from what I can see right now, that will set that sort of pace. Shanghai and New York. Seoul can't set that pace right now, unless they improve. So this tells me, currently, now this could change when we see New York Seoul. Next week we will see New York versus Shanghai, which is going to be an absolutely massive match, because that will tell us who is the best in this region. And I really don't know who's going to win that one. But this tells me that Seoul are the third best team in this region. Not the best, not the second best, the third. So that's very, very interesting. it does also suggest that there is a potentially very big gulf between the top 3 teams and the rest of the teams in the Asian region, including London. So, yeah, this was a surprise. I expected this to be a lot closer, but Shanghai dominated this match. And believe me, I am sure that every single team, probably apart from New York, are not going to want to go up against the Shanghai Dragons team right now in that region, because there is no stopping them. There is no stopping them. I really don't know who is going to stop the Shanghai Dragons from just sweeping this region completely, especially with that unique tournament coming up as well. To put it in perspective, Shanghai have dropped 1 map for the entire month of April, and that was the map they dropped against Chengdu. So they've beaten the Hangzhou Spark 3-0, they've beaten Chengdu 3-1, Guangzhou 3-0, Hangzhou 3-0, Chengdu 3-0, Guangzhou 3-0, and Seoul 3-0. They have absolutely demolished the Asian region, which is actually quite a competitive region right now. So I am very interested to see what the Shanghai Dragons team is going to do this season. I really wish we could see Shanghai take on Philadelphia. And this is really, you know, the proof in the pudding of that Shanghai, the tournament, the pre-season tournament that Shanghai did, the Shanghai Invitational. It's really proof of the pudding. I saw really good quality in that Shanghai Dragons team then, and it has just got better and better and better. I don't know who's going to stop this team from just rolling through this entire region. Anyway, moving on, Guangzhou Charge taking on New York Excelsior. 3-0 for the New York Excelsior, but by no means an absolute stomp for New York. Not like it was against Chengdu. Against Chengdu, it was an absolute stomp for New York. But Guangzhou did give a good account of themselves, and they continue to do this thing, Guangzhou Charge. They did it against Shanghai earlier in the week as well, where, yes, they got 3-0'd, but they didn't get outplayed entirely. And that seems to be the thing with Guangzhou Charge. And it's a shame because they may get results against the likes of London, Hangzhou, Chengdu, but they're not going to get the cheeky results against the top teams, I don't think. Whereas if we were going to see more play from like cross Asia NA, then it would be incredibly interesting, because I think Guangzhou Charge could pick up wins against the likes of the Valiant, against the likes of perhaps even the Gladiators, especially like the Floridas and the Washingtons of this world. They would probably easily get wins there. So it's unfortunate the situation this Guangzhou Charge team finds itself in, but they were by no means completely outclassed. But New York are still looking really good. Really good. Mano was really good this week. So New York versus Shanghai next week. This is what I mean. That is 1 and 2 in Asia. We will find out who is number 1. And I can't wait. That is going to be such a fantastic match. But we've got 2 more matches to look at. First of all, Florida Mayhem taking on the Boston Uprising. This was the quickest match in Overwatch League history. Florida Mayhem get a 3-0 over the Boston Uprising. And the stat is that the Mayhem set a new record for the fastest match win, with 24 minutes and 9 seconds worth of time spent in-game beating the Uprising. Took 25 minutes to beat Boston. And that is not even anywhere close to the best team in the league. If that doesn't set alarm bells ringing at the Uprising, I don't know what will. Not good. Not good, Boston. Let's try and sort this out, shall we? Otherwise, you're going to have to go and find some counselling, because you're going to be in shock. But last game of the weekend, of course, it was the derby. It was the Texas derby, the Battle of Texas. Houston Outlaws taking on the Dallas Fuel. It was by far the closest match of the weekend, because it went to 5 maps. So, thank goodness for that. Otherwise, we'd have 3-0s all weekend. I was worried we're going to get that after the San Francisco shot game. But this was really close. I expected this to be really close. But Dallas Fuel came out on top in the end with a 3-2 victory over the Houston Outlaws. It was very close though, and could have easily have gone the other way if it were not from some tiny individual mistakes from the Outlaws, which, okay, Route 66 is an example of this. Muma not using his Primal Rage kind of lost Houston that map. if it wasn't for that, maybe we'll be looking at a different result here. But this was actually really, really close. And I think it's testament to both of these teams. They've improved from the start of the season, especially the Outlaws. And unfortunately for Dallas, I don't want to put a downer on the win. And I think it will always be tight because it is a derby. There was a lot of, passion in this game. But I would like to see Dallas be a little bit more dominant if they want to be higher up in the league. I think these two teams are going to be fighting for play-ins at best, unfortunately. But it was a really good match. If there's any match to go back and watch this weekend, it will be the Houston Outlaws Dallas Fuel match, because it was so close, so awesome to watch. And yeah, I mean, what a great game. But that rounds us out for the results of this week. It's been very, very interesting. But in the standings, we have new leaders. We no longer have an unbeaten team. This will not be a season where we see a team go unbeaten. We have never had that. And so the new leaders are the Philadelphia Fusion. And in second, we have the Shanghai Dragons. In third, we have the New York Excelsior. So those are three of the teams I believe that are in that big top cluster. In fourth, we have the Seoul Dynasty. I have my reservations about the Dynasty lineup right now. Whether it can be right at the top of the league with the rest, it might improve with time, because remember, they still have only played 4 matches this season. The joint least with Vancouver. So, again, there's a lot to be proved. But in my opinion right now, this Seoul team is part of the Atlanta Reign chasing pack, not the top pack. San Francisco Shock are up to 5th. Again, could be a team in that top big boy pack. But at the moment, I'm going to kind of isolate that to Philadelphia, Shanghai, and New York until I see Shock take on Philadelphia, basically. London are in 6th. That's by virtue of teams basically losing and winning. They haven't played. London, I don't think, will remain 6th. I would be very, very surprised if Spitfire got anywhere near that spot once they start playing again, but you never know. Atlanta Reign are in 7th after their loss to the Philadelphia Fusion. Paris Eternal in 8th, not featuring this week. Florida Mayhem up to 9th, nonetheless, after their win over the Boston Uprising. Vancouver in 10th again. Who knows what's going to happen there? They're back in NA now. 11th, Los Angeles Gladiators. 12th, Toronto Defiant. 13th, Hangzhou Spark. Dallas Fuel in 14th. 15th, Guangzhou Charge. 16th, Houston Outlaws. 17th, Chengdu Hunters. 18th, Los Angeles Valiant, which I think is harsh. I think we will see the Los Angeles Valiant pick up some more wins once we go cross NA. 19th, Washington Justice. Again, last time we saw that team, they didn't look too good. And, well, talking of not looking too good, Boston Uprising in 20th. Yeah. Don't know what's going to happen there. I really don't see them getting off that one win. I think they're lucky that the Houston Outlaws were so bad at the start of the season that they got a win, because if they weren't, I honestly think we were looking at another Shanghai Dragons here. I think we were looking at another 0-28 or whatever it is. Whatever number of matches we end up playing this season, but Boston are very lucky to have a win on the board. That's all I can say. And I don't see where any more wins are going to come from for this team. I really don't. It's time to be honest, Boston. Things have got to be sorted out. Or maybe it is a case that Boston just don't care anymore. Maybe the owners of Boston just don't care anymore. And that would be very, very sad to see. And in that case, just sell the Blood team. In the end of the day, just sell it. But I'm going to stop rambling on. It's been a really interesting week. The next couple of weeks are going to be super, super interesting, because we're going to see so many different looks from different teams, different games we haven't seen yet. We're going to see the tournament that is in the previous video on the channel, if you want to talk. If I've already talked about that. But next week, it'll be fairly normal. We will see some more interesting games like Toronto versus the Gladiators, for example. But week 14 is where things will start to hot up, because Vancouver will come back in the NA region, and that is when London Spitfire come back in week 14, which is Saturday, May the 9th. And Spitfire will be coming back with their entire 12-man roster. Jihan, their second main tank, will be available. He will be of age on May the 9th to play for that team. So that might make a difference, because J-Mac, when we last saw the Spitfire, was one of the weak links of that team. So we have got a lot to look forward to. If you haven't seen the next 3 weeks of schedule, it is on the Overwatch League website in the news part. Also, all of the details about the up and coming tournament is as well. If you don't want to look at that, look at the previous video on the channel, and that also goes through all of that. Tomorrow, Team of the Week. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you'd like to give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then. Yeah.